power in Brooklyn for? I don't know what he wants power in Brooklyn for, but once you're into a power trip, like Elijah Muhammad, for instance, in Chicago, you want to hold on to it. You want to pass it on to your children, I guess. I mean, I don't have any power, so I don't want to pass anything on to my children, but some people want to pass it on to their children. I guess Donald Trump does, or someone like that, or the Rockefellers, or people who have power and money, and so they want to pass it. So there's a power play too there, I guess, but they claim it has to do with men shouldn't meddle in this.
Okay, that was the only point I was confused.
But the Zionist movement, as I was trying to say since you asked, was given this name by Theodor Herzl, who was a newspaper correspondent in the late 19th century. I shouldn't tell you, but it's all in the book, so he tells you about it all. He witnessed a thing called the Dreyfus trial. In fact, this guy, that actor Dreyfus, what's his name, the actor? Richard Dreyfus made a movie about the Dreyfus trial, funnily enough. I think it was called, what is it called? Prisoner of Hope or something like that. I forget what it's called. I think you can get it in the video stores. It's a pretty good movie. The Dreyfus trial was in France in the 1890s, where after some of the reverses the French army had taken in the 1870s war with Germany, they were looking for scapegoats, and they found a Jewish officer. There were few enough of them on the general staff, and there was some spying going on in the general staff. As it turned out, this officer was a very innocent, gentle fellow. His name was Dreyfus. I think Richard Dreyfus is probably related to him, which is why he made the movie. And he was sent to Devil's Island because he was supposedly, the general staff had decided he was the one they were going to hang this leak in the French general staff on. And then the whole country of France became torn by this trial. And Herzl was a correspondent, a Jewish correspondent, who was working for a Viennese newspaper at that time. He had never really taken an interest in Jewish affairs, but he was so shocked by the anti-Semitism of the French mass, the delight they took in the humiliation of Dreyfus, the ripping off of his epaulets, the cries for blood that went up. In fact, the very famous French writer, Émile Zola, wrote a tract in the newspaper called J'accuse, I accuse. And he was a novelist. And he broke open the scandal of the general staff, something like Michael Moore may be trying to do with Bush, although with less success, I think. Zola made it clear that this was all a plot in the general staff, and he accused all the high officers of the government in cooperating with it. And it's a very famous text, and he brought the government down. But he paid with his life. He had to flee France, and when he came back after 5 or 10 years later, and he was in his apartment with his wife, someone put a plate over his chimney in his apartment building, and he and his wife ended up gassed to death. So you often pay with your life for these kinds of things in a way you don't expect when you take a position of virtue or righteousness. Dreyfus was sent to Devil's Island. Well, that made Herzl into a Zionist, because he saw that there was something horrific that was waiting to happen in Europe to the Jews of Europe. He saw, like a prophet, he envisioned. He said, you know, we have to get this Palestinian-ish thing done quickly, otherwise there's going to be something of monumental, earth-shattering proportions. Some disaster is going to occur. And as it turned out, he was right, and he didn't get the thing accomplished in his lifetime. He died of a heart attack because he worked himself to death in the 4 or 5 years that he became obsessed with this idea, or maybe the 8 or 9 years. He worked himself to death and died of a heart attack in 1904. And this Dreyfus thing had occurred in 1896. But he started in this process the Zionist movement. He called it the Zionist movement. What it was to rebuild a Jewish homeland in Palestine. So that's what it's all about. And that's why the boy's father in this book is very into that whole thing. And the break between the two boys is over. You think, well, the break between the Arabs and the Jews is over, it should be over Zionism. No, the break between the Jews and the Jews is over Zionism. The Jews who want to stay in their homely adopted countries. The Jews of England, for instance, were very anti-Zionist. They wanted to enjoy being Englishmen, and they didn't want their status as good little Englishmen undermined by a so-called Jewish state somewhere in a place that they didn't want to go to. And same in America. Reform Judaism in America was very anti-Zionistic and so on. So people don't realize that these are very complex issues even within a community. Same as probably the issue of black Islam in the Afro-American community is probably a complicated issue. So it isn't the Arab-Israeli thing that was the problem with Zionism in its early days. It was the fight within the Jewish community itself over these matters. And people like Herzl were not so much interested in Western, what we would call assimilated Jews. They were more interested in the masses of Eastern European Jews who were, they thought, in grave danger. And as it turned out, he was absolutely right. They were in grave danger, and 6 million of them were destroyed. So if you think that the Israel state is a threat today, just imagine what it would have been with 6 million more people. You really might have had a problem on your hands. So, you know, what the Jews were able to do with the remnants of refugees out of gas chambers is quite an incredible thing. And I think evangelical Christians have recognized that. Very few others have recognized that because evangelical Christians love the Bible. They love the Bible. That's the thing, the holy book. I don't think they love any pope. I don't think they love any particular leader of a group that they identify with. They love the Bible, old and new, and that comes out of it. Okay, that answer your question? Your Zionist lecture. Okay. This class is almost evaporated, but let's do a little bit. Let's go back to Black Elk a little bit more before we. Anyone else have any questions on that? Let me do a little Black Elk for you and let you go here. I want to make a little bit of progress here. Let's see. Where do we leave off here?
Chapter 3, Great Vision.
The Great Vision. I thought we didn't finish that one, huh? Well, we did finish that when he comes back into his body at the end, and look at this, page 37, the bison hut. They take him in a little, I guess, drag you would call it. He's still ill. He was 12 days lying like that, and that's, remember I told you the movie I was telling you about, Rockabilla Highway? Whirlwind Chaser. That's the person on the radio in the truck that these two young Native American boys who are going to rescue one of their sisters down in Taos, they're going to Taos, I think, or they're going to Santa Fe, New Mexico from